Right, well, to do these camera documentaries I've had to get a lot of cameras and lenses to actually make the videos really, and so I'm left with these. And also whilst I've been making the videos and being faced with the issue of photographing cameras, I discovered early on in the piece that the standard zoom lens that comes with the Olympus is not really suitable for taking pictures of cameras and things this small, because you'll see that it doesn't really focus close enough to be able to do that, and probably would have the wrong angle of view also. So I'll put up a picture of that's taken with this particular lens. Now I have a number of lenses that I was able to try to do this. I actually picked up this lens here, which is it's called a macro zoom lens, which went from 35mm to 70mm, and that is double. You double that for micro four thirds, so that's from 70 to 130. I thought that might be a good one, but in actual fact, although it's called a macro, it doesn't really focus close enough. And the first camera I got came with an interesting lens, which is a Miranda 70 to 210mm, and I thought, when I bought the camera, it just came with it, and I thought, so I'll be interested to try it, but it's probably not going to be any good. And this is actually on the adapter. You can see it's actually not as big as the adapter, but it's got a zoom. Oh, where's it? Here you go. It's got a zoom. Now, what struck me when this lens arrived was the quality of the lens. The actual feel of it is actually very high quality, very, very, very well made lens. And I found out later on that it's probably made by Cosina, the Miranda lens. It's very, very good lens. Anyway, to cut a long story short, I ended up using this for some of the pictures that I took. It's the first lens I had for taking pictures of cameras, and that was great. Yet I got all these other cameras with lenses and that, and I acquired different lenses, and so I was able to try the lenses. And some of the lenses that you used were the Zeiss 2.8, f2.8, 50mm, and the 50mm is a nice size. It comes, this is the adapter that you get for micro four thirds. This is for the M42 screw mount here, and so I did try and use for a time one of those lenses, and then I found that the f1.8 Meyer-Optik Gorlitz 50mm f1.8 seemed to do a better job, and it also has a wider aperture on it, so I used that for a time. Now the one I had for that was I think it was Pentax bayonet mount, so I had to buy another adapter with a Pentax bayonet mount. And after buying a few Prakticas, and so actually this Miranda has got the Pentax bayonet mount, so the Miranda, this is a micro four thirds adapter on the Miranda with that bayonet mount. So I have the M42 spare now, because what I had to buy this Praktica to M micro four thirds to be able to try the very good modern lens from the late 1980s. This is also a Meyer. It's actually called it's a Zeiss Jena. It's a Zeiss Jena f50mm 1.8. Now, I can't find anything that can beat this lens. As far as sharpness goes, it's really great lens. And so, towards the end of my documentary, this is the lens that I'm using for all my pictures. And what happens when you find a really fine lens is that you just use that lens all the time. This was happened to me when I had my Leica M2 with a Summicron lens on it. The Summicron lens was very sharp, and you just don't want to use any of the other lenses that you have. You just make do with the Summicron, because you know if you're going to put some of the other lenses on, you're going to lose something. Although the 50mm lens, the standard one that comes with it, although it's only f3.5, it's not too bad either. But you know, with you've got Summicron, you've got an f2, and so you know you tend to want to use these things. So I'll put a photo up of the results. I did some pictures. I took the picture of this camera in the same position that it's in now, and I'm going to put them up on the screen in the best quality I can on the video, so that you can see what the quality differences are. So I did this today because I wanted to just double check that I hadn't made any mistakes and that the lenses that I was using were correct. And I did actually make a mistake, because I'd stopped using the Miranda and I'd been using one of the other lenses instead. And I have discovered with my testing today that the Miranda, if I want to get closer than what this can do, then the Miranda is the lens to use for it. And it's funny because there are hundreds of these lenses for sale on eBay, and they're all pretty cheap. But what I did notice was that this particular Miranda, I got two of these Mirandas, and they're not all exactly the same. And this Miranda, the good one, is if you have a look at the font on it, they may have changed over time. And this particular Miranda, 70-210, is very, very good. So if you check the fonts out there and just make sure that the Miranda you're getting is the same one as that. And this is probably the best bargain you could possibly lay your hands on as the next lens up after a 50mm. With this lens you can pretty much do anything you can't do with the 50mm you can do with this lens. And it's also a good macro lens. Now I did get to get very close-up pictures, I bought some extension tubes. So you want extension tubes that go together with your lens. I got M42 mount extension tubes, so that I can't use this one with them, but I could use the Pentacon. I've got a 50mm M42 Pentacon 1.8 lens, and that's a really, really good lens. I'll show you the difference between that lens and this Carl Zeiss lens here, and you'll see that there is quite a bit of difference in the sharpness. Yet it's debatable which has the nicer quality, because they're both nice. If you wanted to really architectural sharp images, then the Zeiss lens is great. But if you wanted to do portraiture or something like that, then you'll see that this other one is really sharp. You don't notice any lack of sharpness, but it just makes the surface tones just a little bit not so sharp. So you'll see the metal in the picture is a slightly different quality, a more smoother quality, which is often what the eye sees. If I look at this, all these cameras, they seem to be more like what the Nesser quality lens is delivering, and that the Nesser lens is actually looking much more closely, more accurately at the surface textures, and so perhaps it's giving a less than real look, a more sharp look, sharper than it actually is. Now that super reality is, if you're taking a picture of a camera, that super reality is really nice. I like that, and there might be times where you want the other look, so just bear that in mind. But I'm quite happy to actually have these three lenses. Now you'll see that in any situation where the standard Olympus lens can be used, it beats hands down any of the others really, or equals them. I wouldn't say it beats them, but it is certainly got some different quality. The super, it's either more contrasty or wide, it's got more brightness range, something about it is superior. Yet it cannot get close like this one can, and this one is very, very, very great, as good as this one in terms of its sharpness. And what this one cannot do, this one can do almost as good as this. And so you'll see that I'll put the pictures up and so that you can judge them for yourself. I'll show the normal picture and I'll show it blown up to full size so that you can do pixel peeping on it if you like. And I like to pixel peep my pictures. I don't like the pictures to be, if there's anything that's not there when I blow it right up, if there's anything I don't like in it, then I'm not happy with it. And so I feel that the image should be good enough to pixel peep it. And for example, because if you imagine that you might want to print this image huge, then you want to actually be able to, whatever you're looking at wants to be nice to look at. You don't want sort of some bad artifacts in there, especially in the shadow areas. And so all of these are dog, yeah, the shadow area is a dog. I had to turn off, in this camera, I had to turn off the shadow adjustment setting that it normally uses. It normally shadow adjusts, and I had to go into the menu system and turn that feature off to get usable, great looking grain, if you like, on the pictures. And it won't do it with that shadow adjust on, it won't actually do it. Okay. That's enough. I think it gives you an idea of what lenses to look out for. It's interesting that the two lenses that I use the most are the cheapest lenses you can buy, and also these lenses here, you can normally get them for 50 to 80 pounds free with the body. And so this is a 14 to 42 millimeter lens that extends out. How does it work? Don't normally do it with the, oh, here we go. It normally extends out. That's what it looks like when it's actually being used. And it's a very small lens, as you can see. It's a very, very small lens. And it's only f3.5, but it is sharp, really, really sharp. And this is nice, this goes to 1.8, so it's really nice for focusing. What you do is you open it wide up to 1.8 to focus it, and then you can stop it down. All of these pictures I think were stopped down to f4 or f5.6, I can't remember exactly what I stopped down. I might have stopped one down to f8 because it looks like the depth of field is more in that particular one, and maybe it gives that particular image a bit of an edge over the others. But they were all stopped down a couple of stops at least. And if you do that, then you get, your picture becomes, the parts of the camera that you're interested in all go into focus. If you have it wide open, all the eye does is try to look at the bits which are out of focus, and it interferes with the viewing pleasure, if you like. And so you want at least the parts of the camera that you're going to be looking at in focus, even though the background, you might get less of a background blur doing that. It's necessary to have sharp images of the pieces that you're photographing. You can't just have one bit. If you just photograph the name in sharp and the rest of these things not sharp, what does that mean? It's just kind of like, well, the name Miranda, or the name Olympus. It doesn't mean anything. But if you take the picture of the camera itself, you want to be able to see all of the controls in sharpness, all of the lens in sharpness, and you also want to be able to see the writing on the lens, and you want good tonal gradation in the dark areas of it, so you see something and not just a black hole. So I hope that gives you an idea of the approach and what lenses have proved useful. And I'm not using any of the older lenses, I'm not using any of them because whilst they're good lenses, they're nowhere near as good as the more modern ones.